Hey you guys, this is Tired Goth, and you are watching the Threat Intel 102 series where I go into the more in-depth details of the types of threats that you want to be aware of, look out for, and keep away from in order to better your life. This is for 18 plus members or participants, and for the sake of disclosure, it's for entertainment purposes only, but there are some fact-based testimonies that are used in these threat assessments that I have developed. This entire series is developed by me. A lot of it is actually disclosure. A lot of it is personal experience. I don't know if you guys knew that, but yeah. So we are, this is also copyright protected content, so, you have to talk to me if you're going to use anything about my story here, but let's continue on to the meat of the task here. Today's episode is actually going to be about some things that I had noticed about tinges, concepts, acts, traits that you want to look out for in the case that you or someone you care about is being trafficked. There is usually a pattern that follows these things. You can look them up in police reports and, crime cases and things like that, but what it usually is there is a tactic that will isolate the person that is intended to become the victim by the parties involved in, whatever the incident is. It could be a single person, it could be a group, it could be a collective with some sort of incentive to cause harm to the person. It could be for money, it could be for spiritual wealth, which is another type of currency that is not spoken about nearly enough. Discussions of that are actually few and far between when it comes to the logic of why someone does these things. And it's because it can't necessarily be ordered in the court of law as to what was assumed as a property. So, some of the things that you want to look out for is whether or not a person is actually in contact with people prior to them getting removed or helped out of a situation to then land themselves into a more dangerous situation. This is the type of thing that you want to address with your family. You want to make sure that whoever they're talking to is not making them feel more safe than they do in their own home. Because by that point, the person is probably feeling so isolated that they wouldn't feel safe anywhere and they would settle for whatever would get them away from what they're feeling. That will lure them into problems. That will lure them into situations that are very dangerous for them. Especially if they are being bullied, if there are external enforcements of abuse. If there are situations that are not allowing the person who is in pain to heal because it's a constant barrage of personally assaulting things that are happening to them, such as, the people around them attacking them, getting cyberbullied. And for those of you who know the Tyler the Creator joke, like, what do you mean cyberbullied? Just turn your computer off, right? The reason why that joke is so funny is because, yes, that is the power move to make. But if you intend to get anything done and you're actually getting cyberbullied, your entire network infrastructure is getting torn down. Your files are getting stolen. If you're trying to run a business, your business is purposely being tanked by people who don't want you to make money to be able to defend yourself. You are literally at war. Right? It's a war that you're in. You're having everything by these people who don't want you to survive it get torn down completely. So this is not... It's not as easy as just turning the computer off if you need your computer to do something for you, right? So it's done purposefully to interrupt this and to cause destruction by these groups who are hired hackers. They are, they pose themselves as investigators. They will isolate a person and make them look like a threat on purpose in order to frame them, in order to position them to look like they were already a problem, that it wouldn't matter if they got taken away to something, or someone or an institution, or if they found a higher ground, but it was far away, then good for them. Meanwhile, there is no such thing for a higher ground for a person who's being targeted if the targets are cooperating to make sure that the person doesn't get away, that they can't escape the lifestyle that they're being pushed into. A lot of other tactics include starving the person while they're in their own home so that they have to seek other people to feed them. It could be blocking them out of their own job opportunities, blocking their emails of successful entry into a program or a job, getting their email addresses hacked repeatedly over the course of many days. Eventually luring them into a false sense of security with the same groups and people who were probably aware of what was happening to this person, who probably had a hand in it. It's what these people will do, especially in a spiritual sacrifice that involves a body, that involves someone needing to sin in order to gratify and grace another person with their gifts, without their knowing. Like, literally, the person will die and their gifts will leave their body and enter a grounding point energetically that someone else was harvesting with in order to remove the gifts, to create a destiny swap, to create a backfire for this person's entire life. Meaning, they would basically say, okay, all they wanted to do was live, so let's turn their life into a backfire on them with magic. That's why the energy pulls with full force in the opposite direction back to the people who do those types of spells, because it's actually reversing the natural order of where everything is already placed. So, with this said, there are some very intense threats that can come to light of a person's safety, about a person's safety, regarding a person's safety, their practices, whatever it is. They might feel at one point that the victim, or the person being targeted to become the victim, to create the victim out of them, I should say, gets pushed into a sort of sense of desperation about what they need to do in order to fulfill their purposes. And it's not good. It's not good because they end up in the hands of people who are already living with very poor intentions, who have possibly harmed even unalived people, who have harvested their organs and hidden them, who have fed those organs to other people. You will never know what you can encounter when someone is trying to cover something they've done up. That's the issue here. That is the problem. So, with this said, it's more the case that if you're doing your best to discover what this really looks like, the second thing you want to look out for is, after the person has been isolated, watch their behavior, watch the way they talk, listen to the stories they tell you, because a lot of people will immediately write off a person claiming that they got hacked as like that disease that you get when you're online and you have a short attention span and like your eyes start playing tricks on you. A lot of people will chalk it up to a mental illness, but if you see your own security settings being dismantled and then suddenly you have no access to your own accounts and you have your passwords written down, you have them dated, you keep a log of when you change them, and you don't show that log to anyone or grant access to anyone who would want that, except you, yourself, how is it that those things would just change? This type of repeated betrayal trauma, too, that you receive on the end of experiencing these things, actually causes issues for the way that your brain processes things in the future. So it's sort of like the trauma of experiencing this breeds the issue that people were already saying existed for you, in a sense. So it's persisted, though, to continue making the person feel ill at ease and out of their own body, out of control of their own life circumstances, to demotivate them. You know, these are war tactics used all the time. But here's the thing. When people, common civilians, have war tactics that are used in armies, in the military, in their hands, these are not toys. But if you try to tell a civilian who feels miffed by their life circumstances that they're not playing with a toy that they think is just like a government grade Nerf gun or tool to basically dismantle someone's entire machine, I mean, this is not what they're going to want to hear, A, and then B, if they're already taking an interest in that kind of a thing, but for violence and not for security research purposes, you have to wonder what happened to them as a person and just try to pick it apart with a therapist or a psychologist or something to see what it is that would compel them, beside the money, to trade themselves for what they considered to be a better lifestyle, or a promise for a better lifestyle anyway. So you have people who have this mentality then that in stage 3 of this attack, who are being targeted, that they have nothing and no one, and then it's do or die. You know, you have people who are like, okay, if no one's going to pay me to work for them, if no one's going to help me survive, if no one's going to offer me food and options without me having to petition for it, I have to start doing things for myself with whatever it is I have and whoever I have. So a lot of these people also suffer betrayal traumas by going back to people who have already expressed that they don't care about these people, these targets. So it is an ongoing process to starve a person out of their own right to live in a place where it is, the entire place is run by a constitution that protects said people. And then when it is reported to the police, if the police are crooked, they don't do anything about it. The moment you mention a cult, some police will look at you as if you're not supposed to know that, but they won't actually call you out on it. What they'll do is they'll send people to your house and have them ask you if you're taking any medication, which they're not supposed to do. You're not supposed to disclose your medical records to the police department or any representative of that for any reason. So you don't have to. So don't do it. But this is in fact what people go through. So after repeatedly trying to assess what is happening to them, how to modify it so that it doesn't happen to them anymore, there are situations then where they will seek other states of, positioning to be in. Sometimes if they try to make connections, in other states, they'll go out of state. And that is usually the physical stage of being trafficked. Because at that point, the person is so vulnerable that they are willing to leave everything that they know and have, or feel like they are losing behind, whether or not it is actually a constructed event. So they leave, and what will happen is they will end up in the hands of someone who is going to pretend to care for them, but they're actually going to lure them into worse situations. Their diet may be altered if they are being fed food that they're not supposed to be eating, such as we learned with the Epstein case, which I have been exceptionally quiet about, but this is the state of what it is we're dealing with in the realm of bravery here. I can attest to the fact that if someone has been taken off this earth, they're going to have been handled by someone who has a cooler somewhere that is storing meat that for some reason has not been eaten for a really long time, and it was being saved for a special occasion. The meat is going to look like it has been sitting around for a while. And you might have questions as to why. That is exactly the question you should have. Now, while we can all go black-pilled and, say, oh, well, human meat has been in the food chain for decades. How did you not know? Yeah, I understand that there's crime, right? But what I'm actually assessing with you here is how likely it is that when a person is already vulnerable and looking for help and they go look for it, that they are going to find someone who has no desire to help them and will actually try to ruin their life under that ruse of helping them. So, other than encountering someone who had intentions of creating sacrilege for the person, there's also the concept that, apart from having been physically removed from the environment, they were being spiritually trafficked into a lifestyle that they did not want to live on their own volition. So that's 2 crimes. Not only is that a RICO law issue, but that is a spiritual crime. Now, some could argue that spiritual crimes have grounded themselves in litigation. But you're dealing with people who think they're above the law when they are trafficking people. For whatever reason. Maybe they have money, maybe they're convinced that they're just very lucky because they do black magic and that seals their luck in. Maybe they believe, and again, I'm not here to bash religions, but really what for? It's my whole thing is like, okay, spiritually speaking, if you had a tangible object that represented your faith, a door, say you have a door, and you need to make it home and leave the house each night and day. When you go to open a door, do you bang it down out of the hinges to enter the premises and then put it back up every day and night, or do you just twist the knob and walk in after you unlock it? Prayers are like keys that unlock the door that you want to walk into. Black magic defaces your body, cuts it open, bleeds you out as an offering. So what you're saying to me is that you would rather offer up something completely destructive and weird to do in the first place to get closer to what you think is God that you're talking to there, in order to access the same thing that you could have just used a key and opened the door by twisting the knob for. So this is my reasoning for it, and this is kind of why I look at these things. And having personal experience with some of these people who practice this, I'd like to also relay that if you notice signs that you are having your sleep tampered with, you aren't allowed to sleep at certain times that you would prefer to be sleeping because your body is tired and drained from being hexed, if you notice that your freedom of movement is almost being controlled as if on a puppet string, if you notice that whatever it is you're doing with your food, your drinks, whatever, it feels like it could be tampered with at any time, you are not sensing that incorrectly. That is a looming danger that a lot of people feel, and it's only a matter of time before it actually happens. And then lastly, if you really want to be careful about this, if the person you're around happens to have like what seems to be a comfortable party lifestyle, and it makes you question, okay, like, is this just how rich people live? There are no guarantees that you are actually around a person who wouldn't be sacrificing you for whatever rank in their little demonic country club that they have joined. Assuming this kind of rank is horrifically dangerous for them as people, because the risk of them getting arrested while doing this is a game changer. Because they would be the smartest person ever, but the dumbest criminal sitting in a jail cell. Juxtapositionally. So, let's just, place your bets and pick your fights, right? So, if you experience some of these things, that lead into the later stages and the dangers that you might be encountering out in a place where it could be very difficult to make it back home, as you would be several hours away, or, experience things that can make you panic as you're out in that specific area without a real connection or way to get home, just pray. You know, I definitely prayed my way out of that situation, and it worked. But be receptive to the answers that can come to you from the survivors that have made it. It's not a comfortable topic to discuss, but if we don't actually start talking about how these things are real, we're going to lose a lot. And the idea is to preserve. The idea is to protect one another and to preserve one another in this life fabric that we're all weaving together as we live and leave, not on our volition, but on God's volition. If God's not done with us, we don't leave, or at least that's the goal. So if I have contributed some great information to you, if I have helped you assess some threats, put together a decent threat model, and you like what I do, consider contributing to my Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/agofficial and support me by month. You can go to my Cash App. This is XO14337. That's 2 letters, XO, and then 4 numbers, 5 letters, 14337. And you can donate if you feel so inclined to help me. This is my job, really. Putting videos out, helping people, teaching people, educating people, giving back to people who may not realize that they need my wealth of information, and I love them. So of course I would share that with them. We all have wealth in our own way to give back to one another, to give to one another, to enhance one another. So it doesn't just have to be about money. But if we live in a society where we need money to live, consider being kind to the creators, the educators, and the brave voices who come forward to keep you safe. I would like for each and every one of you to support a creator who has changed your life today. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who has changed mine by showing me that your support could really improve my life and make me feel so appreciated. You know, I just thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. Thank you for following me. Thank you for my likes. Thank you for my merch orders. Thank you for wearing my merch. Thank you for representing me well. Thank you for booking me for classes. Thank you for helping me get through my days, my years, my months. Thank you for making me feel like every breath in my lungs is beautiful. It's a gift to feel like this every day. I'm so grateful for you. I love you. Bye. Stay safe.